that this university will continue to grow, to continue to soar higher, and that our nation, O God, will enjoy your divine peace. Thank you, O God our Father. To you be the glory, honor, power, majesty, and adoration. In Jesus' name we pray.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, once again we welcome you to this occasion. It is the third inaugural lecture of Chrisland University, entitled A Journey into the Chemistry of Waste, Wealth, and Health. At this time, we'll be inviting the Vice Chancellor of Chrisland University, Professor Edunishola Arulobu, to declare the commencement of the inaugural lecture. Vice.
To commence today's inaugural lecture, I request that the inaugural lecturer should please stand as I read his citation. Professor Raphael C. Modi is a professor of organic chemistry in the Department of Chemistry, Chrisland University. He obtained his BSc Chemistry with first-class honors from University of Lagos in 1981, PhD in Chemistry from University of Manchester, Institute of Science, Technology of the Victoria University of Manchester in 1987, and a postgraduate certificate in Science Education from the University of Greenwich, 1994. He is a recipient of the National Merit Award, 1978, and the Commonwealth Scholarship in 1983. Can we please appreciate him? Professor Modi has been in tertiary education since obtaining the teaching qualification in 1994. His current research interests are in the area of natural products chemistry, zeolite catalysis, food chemistry, waste conversion and reduction. Professor Modi is a member of Institute of Learning UK, member of the Chartered Institute of Educational Assessors UK, member of the Society of Chemistry Industry, life member of British Zeolite Association, member and chartered chemist of the Royal Society of Chemistry UK. Is also a member of the Institute of Petroleum London. He has successfully supervised MSc and PhD students who worked on the extraction, isolation, and identification of bioactive components from plant materials. Professor Modi is currently preparing a learning text in chemistry that will serve as a bridging text for the first year undergraduate students. He has functioned as an academic tutor and visiting tutor to students on work placement. He is an associate lecturer with the Open University UK and has acted as consultant for the Open University UK on motives of students and employers in career development. He is a moderator and examiner to AQA, OCR, CIE, and EDSEL awarding bodies in the United Kingdom. He is a reviewer of some international scientific journals. A major contribution in the field of zeolite catalysis is the idea of managing waste plastic pollution in the environment by the conversion of polymers as model compounds to useful gasoline range products using zeolites as catalysts. This work continues by using plastic bottles directly and determining the product components. It is expected to lead to the building of a prototype reactor for this conversion. Another major contribution to the academic society and to the knowledge is the carotenoid chemistry, where we have been able to determine the components of and mechanism of carotenoid degradation or auto-oxidation. With this outcome, the question is being asked as if it is the intercarotenoid or is the degradation product that is or are responsible for the pro-oxidant effect or protective action. Professor C. Modi has over 1,200 citations with H index of 14 and I-10 index of 15. His most cited paper is the oxidative degradation of B-carotene and B-apo8 carotenol, published in Tetrahedron. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the inaugural lecture of today, who will take us on a journey into the chemistry of waste, wealth, and health.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chancellor. I want to establish a protocol. The Chancellor, High Chief Dr. Mrs. Winifred OON, the Pro-Chancellor, Distinguished Professor Olukoju FNAL, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Oyedunni Shala Aronogun, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Olatunde Barondi, the Registrar, Mr. Samuel Obatala Otosho, the Acting Bossa, Mr. Moses Essa, the Acting University Librarian, Dr. Woodlock Ekiji, members of Board of Trustees, members of the Governing Council, the Dean, School of Postgraduate Studies, Deans of Colleges and Faculty of Nursing, professors and distinguished members of the Senate, heads of departments and directors of units, distinguished colleagues, academic and non-academic staff, and clergy, Reverend Canon Ayobami Onasoye, and Lord spiritual and temporal, members of the press, distinguished invited guests, great Chrisland University students, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As the citation was being read, the Vice Chancellor made reference to what I have titled A Journey into the Chemistry of Waste, Wealth, and Health. And I want to tie the three things together, that's the waste, the wealth, and health. I want to tie them together to show that what I have done so far involves both three things, and depends on how the country decides to progress, then we will see that it benefits all of us at the long run. I dedicate today's lecture to Almighty God, and I have here, today is the day the Lord has made, and I am rejoicing in it. And I will also tell the members of the audience that today is my sister's birthday, 10th of July. The hostess, but can go for it. Madam Vice Chancellor, permit me to express my deep gratitude to you and to members of your administration for giving me the opportunity and privilege to stand before this distinguished gathering to deliver this lecture. It is a privilege because when my professorship was announced in October 2022, I knew that someday I would deliver an inaugural lecture. And that someday has come, and it is today. Some 3 years after the pronouncement and announcement of the professorship, and I thank Almighty God for His grace and blessings. The journey. And I began my journey as read in my citation at Chrisland, where I was appointed graduate assistant in March 1982. And I abandoned it because I had a scholarship from Commonwealth universities for the UK. I was fortunate to have traveled to the UK for the postgraduate studies, and where I sojourned for 30 years before returning to Nigeria. This would not have been possible without the background I gained from ULAG, because I had a professor who actually worked hard to make sure that we, the students of chemistry, actually understood and participated in research at our project work. And that's Professor Emopai, great Professor Emopai. And indeed, I'm grateful to my colleagues, both at the University of Lagos, at the University of Manchester, and at the University of St. Andrews, Scotland, and to my colleagues in the chemistry department of the Chrisland University. Madam Vice Chancellor, I think it is proper for me to say at this inaugural lecture that this is the second from the College of Natural and Applied Sciences. The first was done by Professor Maguire last year, 2024, and the title of the lecture was, or is, Who Are These Applied as Clouds? Scaling Computing Metaphors. And the first inaugural lecture for the university was delivered by Professor Badejo, and the title of the lecture was Interests. And of course, we are all interested in knowing what interests are. And it was an interesting title lecture as well. And I hope I will be interested if I'm able to communicate to everyone here. So in this lecture, it is my intention to share with you the very many thoughts, insights, perspectives, reflections, and concerns that have run through my mind at different stages of my career in academics. I begin by looking at waste, the work I did on waste, and these are the things I have worked on, and the one that the PC mentioned during our citation is plastics. And I've included the polymers that I worked on as model compounds for plastics. I worked on banana peels. I worked on Odala, and for Yoruba language, it's about more seeds. I worked on ube seeds. Pardon me, I don't know the name in Yoruba. And then waste cooking oil. These are things I have called waste, and I will try as much as I can to relate that to what I have done and connect it to the health and the wealth before the end of the lecture. And before I go into my first work on plastics, I want to look at zeolite. And all I want you to look at when I say zeolite is simply that zeolite is a natural product. It is crystalline in nature, and it has channels and pores, which will perform the function of mini reactors. So the substances we mix react in those pores, and so we have a problem of how do we get out the substances, either as reactants or as products. And we find that the zeolite itself can help you separate these things, either by allowing the products that are of the same size as the pores or the channels to go into the mini reactors and react there, or they can go out as products, again, differentiating between the products that can go out and those that will remain inside the reactors. And that we have called shape selectivity. Shape in the size, in the type of things that will go in and those that will go out. Shape selectivity. And I've tried here to show you a picture where, just for you to recognize the pores or the channels that I've mentioned. So here is one type of zeolite framework that has channels and pores. Here again is another type of framework, modernized framework. I think this is better. You can see clearly the channels and pores. And here's another type, pipeside framework. Again, the pores and channels are clear in these diagrams. And finally, this is the actually the zeolite that initiated the work that I have done, the ZSM5 framework. Again, you can see the channel and the pores within the zeolite. Now, polymer degradation. I'm not going to go into the chemistry of polymers that you can see from the booklet we have. I'm not going to go into the methodology of reaction. All I'm going to show you here is the products we have obtained, and I think the VC has already alluded to those products. So here we have examined linear density polyethylene, the high density polyethylene. There's a difference in them. The high density has very few branches. The linear density has many branches. Polypropylene, another type of zeolite that has branches, or not as many as we have in low density polyethylene. And then we have squalane, which is just moderate, has moderate length, and so we have used that to monitor the difference between the products. These compounds, all of them, the polymers I've used or I use, actually give products that you will see in the table here. It's very clear. You find that you have the carbon. When you say C1, please, C1 is carbon, has only one carbon atom. C2 has 2 carbon atoms, and C3. And the number you have there, C1 to C6, are actually gasoline range molecules. When I say gasoline range, when you go to buy your petrol, those are the main constituents of the petrol you buy. Not necessarily C1, because C1 is a gas. C2 is also a gas. So you might not find them, but the other ones are there in the petrol you buy. That's why we say gasoline range chemicals. Now when you go to NMPC or the refinery, before they send the petrol to you or to the filling stations, they add the aromatics. They add the aromatics, and that's the benzene, the toluene, and the xylenes. Those are added. Why do they add them? Because that makes the petrol burn better. But we find that degrading these polymers, those substances, the aromatics, are produced in the reaction. So if they are there as products, we don't need anymore to add the aromatics to our petrol. It is directly from the waste plastic. And we all know that waste plastic is a pollutant in our society. When I arrived from the UK 10 years ago, I just said, my God, Nigeria is, I'm sorry I'm putting it that way, we are a dirty people. Because I could see the plastics everywhere, and that actually informed this research is as a way to eliminate plastic waste and pollution. But there were concerns as well in doing these reactions, because when you simply, which is what we have practiced by recycling, and we incinerate the plastics, there are two things involved there. You produce toxic materials into the atmosphere. You also, the chemicals that are added to make them plastics, to make them what they are, the plasticizers, are also toxic in themselves. You will release those into the atmosphere as you incinerate? Yes. So by doing this one here, polymer degradation, you find that those things are contained within your products and can be eliminated. And so that makes this work relevant in what we have done. And that relates to health by the fact that we are removing the polymer, those problems. So I said polymer degradation under wealth. Polymer degradation under wealth. As I've said, if we can, as a nation, try to get these plastic waste and recycle them by degradation, we'll be able to make more money. We might not depend solely on the petroleum, but we can recycle so as an additional resource for the country in terms of wealth. The second reaction we did is anisole. It's also an aromatic, which if you take coal, which we have in abundance, at least in the southeast, we have a lot of coal. When you take coal and look at the structure, you find that anisole is part of the structure. And so we can isolate anisole and do some work with it. And we found that by looking at anisole itself, it also gives us some products that are interesting. And these products actually are useful if we consider pharmaceutical industry. The products we get there are fine chemicals, which can also be used for further reaction. And finally, under wealth, we have oil extracts from ube seeds. Now, notice I said I have taken waste, which is ube seed. We lick it, we take the ube seed, and we throw the seeds away. Now, that seed is a waste. Even though some of them might grow, but it is a waste. And so, taking the ube seed, we had to extract the oil from the ube seed. Now, at the time we tried to do this work in extraction, we found that some of the oil was or had antioxidant properties, had antimicrobial properties. That means we can use them for treatment of some ailments. But in the process, we found that most of the things we isolated were fatty acids and their esters. And what we did then was to see how we can convert these fatty acids and esters and their esters to useful products. And of course, that led us to looking into the chemistry of biodiesel. And so the seeds of ube can be converted to biodiesel. Again, providing wealth for the nation if we begin to harvest these waste seeds. Polymer degradation, I think I've mentioned this already. So if from plastic degradation over zeolites we can get all substances, including the aromatics, then these degradation products makes the chemicals stored within these polymers to be accessible for further processing. Anisole, I just mentioned anisole, pharmaceutical industries and agrochemicals, because we have fine products from them. And bases, I've described those as well. The extracts can be translated, trans-esterified to give us biodiesel. I move into my main work, which is the health, as the VC mentioned during my latest citation, is on carotenoids. Carotenoids, I worked on carotenoids. I worked on Oba, which in Yoruba is Apara. The common name is Oyede. I worked on Udala, which is about the one in Yoruba. I worked on Ugiri, which is the Igbo name for bush mango, and I put in bracket there Obono. Those of us who eat Obono know it is the Ugiri is the seed, is the fruit itself. We eat the fruit and we throw it away, throw the rest away. Some of us in the east, south or southeast use the seed for Obono, which is what we eat as Obono soup. The Ube again comes under health. Then we have banana, and I worked on banana peels, not banana itself, on banana peels. And the last one is apple seed, or in Yoruba is Ojuaju, and then pretty much the issue. These ones will come under health. Again, trying to make that connection between the three things in my title. Now for carotenoids, again, I think people can read these from their booklets, but our major interest in carotenoids is actually looking at beta-carotene, which is the hydrocarbon. When it says hydrocarbon, it contains only carbon and hydrogen, and these you find in carrots. And we are all encouraged to eat carrots, and that's because of the health benefits. And I just tried to show the structure of the beta-carotene, which is the top one. And on the left of that picture, you have vitamin A. And on the right, you have retinol. Vitamin A, if you look at those two structures, in reality, they are half. Most of them are half of the beta-carotene. And we are also encouraged to take vitamin tablets, of which vitamin A is one of them. And of course, the aldehyde. Those of you who understand what I'm going to say next, the alcohol, which is the vitamin A, is oxidized to give us the retinol, and the retinol helps us to see. Not the structure that you see on the board, there's this kind of reaction there which we call isomerization. It isomerizes to give you the retinol, which enables us to see well. So when you're told sometimes vitamin A helps you to see, it's actually oxidized to the retinol, the aldehyde, which enables you to see clearly at night. That's the thing we are told. Okay. So we ask the question, which again the Vice Chancellor alluded to in our citation. The question is, by what mechanism or by which mechanism do the carotenoids act? Is it the carotenoid itself or the degradation products that provide the antioxidant or protection that we derive from eating carrot? Now, I said we have provided answers to those questions. We have provided answers to those questions. And we have found that the mechanism of action of the carotenoids is by mopping off the peroxide radicals, which actually lead to stress, oxidative stress. So the carotenoids mop off those peroxide radicals. And the effective agents in providing the antioxidant activity or the protection we're looking for is actually the carotenoids themselves, not the degradation products. Not the degradation products. Okay. The next is WAP. The next is WAP here, where again, this one was done out of curiosity. We just picked it up and decided to look at it. This work was actually done at Covenant University about 5 years ago. Now we know that microbiologists and biotechnologists are interested in preparing probiotics from this seed. So we try to extract the oil because we know that they are also used for treatment for some ailments in our local setting. And we were excited when we looked at the properties, trying to identify the properties of this oil, and we found that the uva had some antiplasmodial property or activity. Antiplasmodial, that tells you something about malaria, has some properties. So we were excited about that, and what we hope to do next actually is looking at those properties in detail. The next compound, which what I've said here, the next compound is ugiri, which is the hormonal seed. Here we found as well, we already know that it had antimicrobial properties, but we found also that this one had antimicrobacterial property. Antimicrobacterial property also relates to tuberculosis. And so it's a work that is in progress because we want to identify those components that make ugiri to have antimicrobacterial properties. It's not a work for the chemist, it's a work for all of us involved in natural products, the microbiologists, the biochemists. So that's the work in progress as well. Now it says here, treatment of extract showed it had antimicrobial activities, but most importantly, the extract showed antimicrobacterial property. So just like well, this is eating in the southeast, the southwest, not very much, but those of us in Lagos or Abeokuta are beginning to eat the long form of oil. So what we intend to do, as I alluded to, is to do a comparative study, and we need to identify the active ingredients, and we need to undertake a systematic study of toxicological or pharmacological activities of these compounds. And one of the plants we worked on, Akose or Ajaoju, this one is already known in pharmaceutical industry that it has some properties. We worked on it and we found for the first time some heterocyclic compounds. When I say heterocyclic compounds, they are compounds that contain any other elements other than carbon and hydrogen. And in this case, we found that the compounds contain sulfur, and those sulfur compounds we reported for the first time from our own work. So it became exciting, and that we have tried to report, and we're trying to make progress by looking at the properties of these sulfur compounds. Because we know these sulfur compounds are actually toxic. And our intention is to make sure that we determine the dosage level, because we just consume these things in the village, or the traditional people will just give you the extract and say, drink this or it will cure this. What is the amount that will require? And that's what we're trying to do by looking at the toxicological studies of these extracts. Now, health in terms of polymer degradation, I've already alluded to. There were concerns regarding the environmental problems caused by the plastic waste disposal. Plastic waste are environmental unsightly. There is uncertainty over the degradation products, byproducts, and whether the additives in the materials will present health problems. Other concerns include environmental and health hazards from the toxic release of the materials following incineration and plastics. In terms of health, in economic terms, there is loss in energy and chemical content of these plastics. So this degradation process makes chemicals stored within the polymers available for us, as alluded earlier. Banana peels. again, we were the first, and I will take credit for that, not being boastful, but I will take credit for it because we were the first to report the products from banana peels, and we found that it had antimicrobial, antioxidant properties. And so, again, work is going to proceed on this one to determine exactly what these things are. We know that farmers give banana peels to their animals to eat. And so if we can isolate and identify those compounds, then we should be able to use banana peels. Again, it's a waste, but we can derive some health benefits from banana peels. Okay, my contribution to knowledge, I think about it to this. My contribution to knowledge on these three areas in my title of Inaugural Lecture, Waste, Wealth, and Health, are we have been able to establish that the mechanism of action of carotenoids or carotenes is by trapping peroxide radicals. We have established that beta-carotene and not the degradation products are responsible for the protective effect of the carotenes. By treating plastic waste over zeolite, we have harnessed the energy stored in these plastics, cleaned up the environment, and provided a source of further income. Working with bases, we have established the oil can be used as biodiesel, again providing another source of income and making possible a cleaner environment. And here I said stop over because the work is not finished. Madam Vice Chancellor, I have now concluded the initial phase of my journey into the chemistry of waste, wealth, and health. And I say thank you. Thank you very much. Madam Vice Chancellor, I have already alluded to some of the things I hope to do in the future, and I repeat them here. We are now looking at extending the work of carotenes by examining the computational studies in the interaction between beta-carotene and some of the proteins associated with various diseases. Extending the work on the extraction basics for commercialization as biodiesel. Extending the work on WA seed, which has been found to have antiplasmodial activity through a pilot study that will involve communities that eat and those that don't eat WA seed, while trying to identify the active ingredients responsible for the antiplasmodial properties. Now, what we are trying to do here is looking at, since WA is eating in Southeast, and we know it is not eating in the Southwest, the idea here is simply, first of all, begin by going to those communities and taking a survey of what happens to them in terms of malaria and how that affects their malaria activity. So if we find that it has some effect, and then we come to the Southeast where it is not eating, and I say Southeast now, I'm looking at a typical village, not necessarily Abeokuta or Lagos, where it is not eating at all. Again, looking at what effect of not eating has on them, and then we can begin to make comparative studies. And that's what I mean by comparative studies, and going to the communities. And of course, we use Lagos, Abeokuta, Ota as communities where we have mixed relationships, and see how that as a control will help us make a conclusion or reach a conclusion as to whether the WA seed actually has any effect on our malaria problems. So that's the work on the WA, and I think that also extends to Ugiri, which is the one of seed, to see if there is any possibility As I said, for this one here, it is tuberculosis. And of course, for those of us who read articles, you'll find that tuberculosis is coming back. And so, if Ugiri has some effect, we'll begin to find solutions to tuberculosis. Recommendations. Now here I have just 2 recommendations to make, and one of them, the first one, is actually for my own university here, Chrisland University, to establish a college of engineering. And it is selfish on my part because it's for me to be able to work with my engineering colleagues such that I'll be able to build reactors that will enable me to continue my work on polymer degradation. If we can build that, then as an institution, we will have an income for the institution. It becomes a center of excellence, and of course for the country, at the end of the day, we benefit from it, both in terms of health and wealth. And the second recommendation is actually looking at the tech fund. And I will say to you, I've already discussed this with the Deputy Vice Chancellor. His name is on the slide there. If you find his name, he's on the slide. Because he is a member of the Tech Fund Committee, and also the former Vice Chancellor is also a member of the Tech Fund Committee. So I'm begging and asking that they allow private universities access to tech funds. And I think that will help us in making progress in private universities. So I mentioned those 2 names because I know they are members, and so there's influence. And both of them have come from here, and so they understand our plight. So that's my second recommendation. And I want to acknowledge, I say thanks to Almighty God for this day. He has directed my path. His words has a lamp unto my feet, and I see the light in my path. I wish to express my sincere gratitude to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Oyeduni Shola Aroyogo, Principal Officers of the University, Professor Barundi, the DVC, the Registrar, Mr. Motosho, the University Librarian, and the University Bossa. I also want to express my appreciation to members of the University Council. I am grateful to the Association of Commonwealth Universities for giving me the opportunity to go to the UK for my PhD studies. The British Council, they paid part of my sponsorship over there. In British Petroleum BP Research, they provided the samples of the zeolites that I use for my work. The Agriculture and Food Research Council of the UK, they sponsored part of my work on carotenes. They actually funded that work. And I thank my professors, Professor John Walton, Dr. Roy Fields, and Dr. John Dwyer, Professor David Bo Hamilton, and Professor Kenneth Harris, and Dr. Akins. Those are I would call them my senior colleagues at UK, St. Andrews and Manchester. I want to acknowledge in particular Professor Chinedu Peace Babalola and her husband, Bishop Collins Babalola, the Bishop of Ajayi Crowder. Babalola, Peace Babalola actually was the one who announced the promotion, and I'm grateful to her for her services to the university. I want to acknowledge Right Reverend Dr. Emmanuel Adekule, Bishop of Eba Diocese, and his wife, Dr. Ibe Adekule, the deans of colleges, the directors of units, and Mr. Ladesuru, Deputy Registrar of Chrisland University. I also want to acknowledge and express my sincere gratitude to Professor Molara Bamboye, who was former DVC at LASU, and I say she's my mentor. She's in the US now, she's retired and she's in the US. I will call her my mentor. Professor Shegun Ajujo, Professor at Milan, Professor Shuriyo at OAU, Professor Adeyemi at Dimas University. Actually, he was one of the people that helped me come back to Nigeria and get a job immediately. Also, the same with Professor Arenu, both of them at Covenant University at the time, and Professor Chinedu Modi. Again, he's a retired person. He was at Gelsu as provost of the College of Education. Mazi Nana, Rear Admiral Ijeoma. And I want to say thanks to my colleagues at the University of Lagos. My set, 1981 set, were all still communicating, and by God's grace we will continue to communicate as long as we need. My colleagues in the chemistry department, Dr. Adedoku, Dr. Anifalaji, Dr. Olari, Dr. Adeniro, Dr. Adeyemi, Dr. Ushola, Dr. Uladi. I respect that she's not here anymore. She's at the US, or she's in the US. And then Dr. Peter Motanshi. Those are my colleagues in the chemistry department. Members of the university, Chrisland University Ceremonies Committee, led by Professor Deneko, Chief Professor Deneko. Okay. And members of the Ogun State chapter of the Chemical Society of Nigeria, members of the Department of Chemistry at Covenant University, and members of the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship, both as a district and at Chrisland University. Okay. And members of the Conans family, that's my college. I won't mention all the names, but everyone is being acknowledged here. And I said here, I wish to acknowledge some special people, and one of them is Dr. Chinyimba. We share boundary in our state, Delta State. Patricia Owo, Ifeanyi Owo, Ezine Nicholas, the college officer, Miss Ife Olanino, the librarian, or part of the library, Dr. Bayo Idowu, Reverend Canon Juwon Nosaya. Okay, and finally my grandparents, both maternal and paternal grandparents, in say family, my own parents directly, ECJ Modi, as we call him, that's his popular name, ECJ Modi, and my siblings, Charles Modi, who is in the audience here, former director of research at CBN. Juliet Modi, whose birthday it is today, Theodora Modi, and Rita Odoye, and mine. Yes, brother. Response Modi, put patents some years ago. Family, my grandchildren, I say thank you to all of them. Their dad, Loretta Modi, my wife, Modi, who is a senior lecturer and consultant at Dye-West Hospital, University of Dundee. They are all in the UK. And we have Dr. Ronnie Modi, also a consultant in renal medicine. She's also teaching educational medicine. And we have Mr. Dele Modi. These are my children, 3 of them. And of course, you have Dr. Natalie Modi, who is the wife of Ify. Then you have the grandchildren, Isabel, Theo, Sam, Phil. Those are my home grandchildren. I thank God for everything. And I thank you all. And Vice Chancellor, I make my presentation. With a copy of my manuscript.
I hereby present the lecture titled A Journey into the Chemistry of Waste, Wealth and Health, delivered today, 10th of July 2025, by Professor Modi to the Registrar for KEEP. On behalf of the Chancellor, High Chief Dr. Winifred Awishika, the Governing Council, management, students, staff and students of Chrisland University, I present to you today the certificate of presentation of inaugural lecture. So it certifies that truly we delivered the inaugural lecture. Congratulations, sir. Also presented to you today is an award of excellence presented to Professor Raphael Chilenom Modi on the successful delivery of the 3rd inaugural lecture of Chrisland University. Congratulations.
We can do better, please. Let's appreciate them. Madam Vice Chancellor, permit me to stand on already established protocols. We have come to another part of this program, and that is the vote of thanks. Join me in appreciating the guest speaker of today for delivering an incisive presentation. The inaugural lecturer, thank you for your presentation. Let's clap him for that presentation. Since my job is simple and is to say thank you, and that is exactly what I'm doing here, let us also, at this occasion, appreciate the Vice Chancellor, the host of this program, Madam Vice Chancellor. Thank you for everything that has made this program a reality. We also appreciate every member of this table for your participation. You are all appreciated. Thank you for your roles. Also, we want to recognize specially our Chancellor, who is on this program online, I Chief Dr. Winifred Aoshika OON. Let us clap her for her role, and for us to know that she is passionate about this project called Chrisland University. She has made it a duty to participate in all organized university programs as much as possible. She is online participating with us. Now, once again, let us give her a hand of applause. Also, online participating with us is the former Vice Chancellor, Professor Chinedu Peace Babalola. Let's clap her. Mrs. Babalola is also a member of the Governing Council of the university. We also have online participating Ms. Tony Aoshika, one of the children of our Chancellor, also participating. We've received the apology of the Pro-Chancellor, who is currently on official engagement. Ordinarily, he joins this program as a participant. We have representing the Vice Chancellor of Covenant University among us, Professor Timothy Anafke, in person of Ehi Erebosele Cyril. You are welcome, sir. This is from Covenant University. Let's do it again, at least all the way from Ota. We also have in our midst Mrs. Edun Abosede Olutola, a member of the Governing Council and as well representing the Ogun State Commissioner, Honorable Commissioner for Education on this occasion. Mrs. Edu, you are welcome. We can't thank all of us enough and then forget the ceremonial committees that put this in place under the chairmanship of Professor Adelekan. Let us appreciate the committee that put this in place. We recognize all attendees of these programs. We can mention us one by one. We thank all of us for coming, our faculty, administrative staff, guests from different spheres of life, and our students for honoring this occasion. And possibly for our students who have come here and for all of us, you may be asking, what is inaugural lecture and what distinguishes inaugural lecture from other one? Inaugural lecture is given by a newly appointed professor, marking the beginning of his professorial tenure. So let us take this home. Once again, we thank all of us for coming. As we go, we wish you all the best. God bless you.
I will now invite the media team to give us the Chrisland University anthem. Please may we stand.
We will shine the light for all to see. Chrisland University. share. We uphold our values and principles to raise great minds and entrepreneurs. Chrisland University, we'll always shine the a shining star that God has built. Chrisland University, deploying resources to educate great hearts of nobility. Through innovation and research for meeting our society's needs, Chrisland University, we always shine the light.
The national anthem.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribes and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians all are proud to serve our sovereign motherland. Our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign. In peace, all bow to honor it, and this we count as gain. To hang unto our children a banner without stain. O God of all creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed, and so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This program is coming to a close, and we're going to be
Sorry,
having.
please. Just a piece of an announcement. All our guests are to join another program in the hall just outside this place. You are invited to join the Vice Chancellor. All guests, members of the procession, families of the speakers, professors in the university, please let's join in this second meeting going on in that room. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're going to be having the main procession in reverse order. The inaugural lecturer to be followed by the Vice Chancellor, the Registrar of Hamas, the Dean of Programs, the Acting Dean of Law, Dean of Faculty of Nursing, Dean Postgraduate School, and the DAP. And then we stand at the procession files out.